You're watching the Daily Climate Show on Sky News. On today's programme, how restoring peatland could be the answer to reducing flooding from Britain's longest river. Wasps are taking on bees for the title of climate superheroes, as new research suggests they could contribute just as much to ecosystems. And conservation charity WWF celebrates 60 years of fighting for nature. Hello and welcome to the UK's only daily climate news show, where we track the changes happening to our world right now and meet those coming up with the solutions. We aim to take you to the heart of the climate crisis, explain the data driving the changes that are already affecting us, but also show you just how far we've come. And here on our data dashboard, we can see how much human activity has warmed our world since the Industrial Revolution. And you can see it's ticking up every second. And as the planet warms, we'll see more extreme weather events and a greater risk of flooding. And that's because, put simply, a warmer atmosphere holds more moisture, and that means heavier rainfall and an increase in river flows and floods. And climate change projections suggest that flood severity is likely to increase in the future in the UK. So finding ways to help reduce the risk of flooding is really important, especially for rivers such as the Severn. Well, some of the worst floods in living memory have hit communities along the Severn in England in recent years. A possible solution could involve changes to the landscape at the river's source in Wales. Sky's Becky Johnson has been finding out how peatland could hold the answer.
To find the source of Britain's longest river, you have to head into the uplands of mid-Wales.
So here we are. This is it.
This is the source?
Yes, it is. It's the source of the mighty River Severn.
All around, you can see the peat that once covered this landscape is eroding and exists only in clumps, not enough to absorb rain and stop it running straight into the river. When it pours, the effect on communities downstream is devastating. Now an ambitious plan from the Montgomeryshire Wildlife Trust aims to hold the water at its source by restoring the peatland across large parts of mid-Wales.
We're used to the idea that farmers produce crops, but actually I would argue that the floodwater here could be a crop. Why don't the farmers get a payment to store that water within the peat?
For the plan to work, farmers would need to be persuaded to leave behind generations of traditional Welsh hill farming.
I think it's the responsibility of government now to help farmers, say, well, this is the land that you drained so we could have more sheep in the 70s and 80s. Well, now we need you to block it all up and revert it back to being bog again.
Subsidising farmers to give up their flocks would cost money.
And the question is, who should pay for it when the work needs to be done here in Wales? But the benefits would be primarily felt by the communities that flood further down the river in England.
And that's the sticking point. So far, neither the Welsh nor UK government has committed to funding the project. Those who back the plan say it would cost a fraction of dealing with future flooding, which could be a consequence of the changing climate. Becky Johnson, Sky News.
Let's take a look now at some of the day's other climate news. And Germany must update its climate law by the end of next year as it violates young people's freedoms. The country's highest court has ruled the government's climate policies are insufficient as they don't give enough detail on cutting emissions beyond 2030. It said the current law means any reductions made after this point will have to be achieved more urgently. A record 3 million new electric cars were registered around the world last year. That's according to new research from the International Energy Agency. It found there was a 41% increase in the number of electric vehicles bought in 2020, despite total car sales falling. Experts say this upward trend will need to continue if we're going to meet our climate goals. Household aerosols release more polluting smog chemicals than all the cars in the UK. Latest figures show around 60,000 tonnes of harmful emissions come from products like deodorants and air fresheners each year, double the amount from petrol cars. It's led to scientists urging people to swap to roll-on deodorant and hair gel to improve the UK's air quality. Thousands of printer cartridges are being washed up on beaches across the world after being lost at sea. Most of the cartridges have been found along the UK's coastlines, as well as several in Cape Verde, Florida and the Arctic Circle. Scientists believe the spillage from a ship's container occurred around 1,500 kilometres off the coast of New York in 2014. And people are being encouraged to give the cities they live in an eco-friendly glow-up. A report from the British Ecological Society highlights how natural measures, including planting street trees and increasing green spaces, can have a positive impact. Experts say bringing more nature into cities improves the environment, creates green jobs and boosts people's health. Now, they might be the quickest way to ruin a summer barbecue, but scientists have found that wasps could be just as valuable as bees. Well, in a moment, we'll hear from Professor Serian Sumner, who led the research. But first, here's everything you need to know about wasps in 60 seconds. With me now is Serian Sumner, Professor of Behavioural Ecology at University College London's Centre for Biodiversity and Environmental Research. Welcome to you. Unlike bees, wasps don't have a great reputation, do they? Is it time to rethink that, do you think? How useful are they?
Oh, I think you've hit on the point there. Yes, it is absolutely time to revisit how we view wasps. So we've got a fabulous legacy from the way that we have changed people's perceptions of bees and how people really appreciate the role of bees in the environment. They understand that they're important in the kind of services that they provide us with, which are through pollination. But wasps, on the other hand, have kind of gone slightly forgotten. And this is surprising because actually there's decades worth of work that does show that wasps have really important roles in the ecosystems.
So what are they? I know, for example, they're top predators, aren't they, of other insects. So why is that useful?
Yeah, so they are predators so they're carnivores. So the wasps are the origins of bees, actually. Bees evolved from wasps. So bees are herbivores, they don't eat meat, they've forgotten how to hunt, and so that's why they're good at pollinating. But the wasps are carnivores, the adults will hunt prey, and if they're a social wasp, they bring it back to their nest to feed to their brood, or if they're a solitary wasp, they will paralyse that prey, that caterpillar, or fly, and bury it in the ground and lay an egg on it. So in provisioning their own offspring, they are actually providing the ecosystems and us, incidentally, with the service of controlling and regulating insect populations. So if you like, a world without wasps would mean that there would be many unchecked populations of other insects that we might even find more loathsome than the wasp.
And how might they cope with climate change themselves?
That's a really good question. So unfortunately, unlike species like bees and butterflies, our understanding of wasp populations is quite limited. People don't tend to record their observations of wasps. There's almost like a wasp blindness. But from the data that we do have, scientists have been able to gather data, for example, from museum collections, as well as some biological records. And it looks like certainly some species of wasp, like the common yellow jacket wasp, is actually doing remarkably well. It seems to be relatively resilient to anthropogenic change.
Professor Serian Sumner, thanks very much indeed for changing our perceptions of how we view the wasp. Thank you.
Thank you.
Over the past 6 decades, the global environmental organisation WWF has been at the centre of efforts to protect nature, pioneering innovative initiatives in conservation. And today they celebrate their 60th anniversary. WWF's mission now includes turning around the crisis in the climate and nature by 2030, ensuring a future where people and wildlife thrive, they say. Well, Tanya Steele is Chief Executive of WWF UK and joins me now. Welcome to you. How has climate change changed the nature of conservation?
Well, we look at climate change and biodiversity or nature, they're two sides of the same coin. And we know that nature does so much to absorb so many of the damaging impacts of a warming world. Our oceans have absorbed nearly 90% of all the additional heat that's been generated on our planet. So protecting our nature is actually incredibly important in our fight against climate change. And realistically, we need to be restoring it as well, to put it back so that we can meet the commitments of a 1.5-degree world in the future.
Well, yes, and when you say a 1.5-degree world, obviously the pressure is on to keep rises in temperatures to 1.5 degrees. What's at stake? I mean, WWF was set up to protect endangered species. How at risk are they if temperature rises increase too much?
They're hugely at risk, and we've already lost so much. We've seen an average global drop in wildlife population numbers of 68% in the last 50 years. That is a catastrophic loss. I mean, nature is in free fall. So the prospect of losing any more precious wildlife, which we rely on, as well as its intrinsic beauty, but we rely on it for a healthy and also for a stable planet. If we lose our nature, if we lose our wildlife, then we really will not have a stable planet and a healthy environment for all of us to live in the years to come.
Tanya Steele, thanks very much indeed. And on our weekly climate show, we're finding out the climate impact of cryptocurrency and hear the behind-the-scenes story of how our correspondent Tom Cheshire filmed at a secret Bitcoin farm in China. That's available from Friday afternoons on Sky News social media channels, our app and our website. And that's everything from us for today. On the Daily Climate Show tomorrow, we go inside the biggest wind turbine testing facility in the world to find out how the renewable energy could help power the UK to net zero. Thanks for watching. See you then.